Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're opening a door that I think most of us try very hard to keep shut.
Yeah, this is one of those uncomfortable topics.
It really is. We are going to look at your boss, your coworkers, your favorite charities, and this is the hard part, the person looking back at you in the mirror.
And we're going to ask a single, pretty brutal question.
Are we all just playing a game?
And not a fun game either. We're not talking about, Monopoly here.
No.
We're talking about a biological game of strategy, deception, and status that has been running for millions of years.
Yeah.
It's a topic that sits right at the intersection of biology, psychology, and just the messy reality of modern life.
Okay, so to set the stage for this, I want to pull up a memory from a few years ago. It's a story that honestly felt like a movie script. Do you remember the CEO savior, Dan Price?
Oh, absolutely. The gravity payments guy, he had
Yeah.
that signature look, the shoulder-length hair, a bit of a grunge rocker vibe, maybe.
Like a modern day prophet. He definitely did not look like your standard Fortune 500 executive.
Not at all.
That's the one. The story was, it was everywhere. He announced he was slashing his own $1 million salary to practically zero. I think it was, what, 70,000?
Yeah, $70,000. So he could turn around and pay every single person at his company a minimum wage of $70,000 a year.
It completely broke the internet. LinkedIn was basically a shrine to this guy for months.
It was the perfect narrative for that moment, wasn't it? I mean, in a world of rising inequality and just constant stories of corporate greed, here was the good king.
He was the antidote.
Exactly. He was living proof you could be successful and radically generous at the same time.
But then the narrative cracked. And it didn't just crack, it shattered.
Right, The Guardian ran a piece that wasn't about the money or the minimum wage at all.
No, it was about abuse. There were reports of a toxic workplace, allegations of assault, and this really chilling detail about signs popping up in the office.
The sign's asking, have you been abused by Dan Price?
Yeah. Can you imagine seeing that at your job? And eventually he resigned amidst all these legal battles, allegations that he assaulted a woman in his Tesla.
So the savior mask just completely fell off, and underneath was something very different.
And that leaves us with this massive cognitive dissonance, Was he a good man who just made some terrible mistakes? Or was the goodness itself the weapon?
And that is the absolute core of what we're covering today.
It is. We are diving into Invisible Rivals, How We Evolved to Compete in a Cooperative World by Jonathan R. Goodman.
Goodman's work is so fascinating because he just rejects the two standard ways we look at humanity.
Right. It's always one or the other.
Usually we think we are either, cooperative angels who get corrupted by society, or we're selfish beasts that need society to tame us.
Mm-hmm.
Goodman says, no, that's a false choice. We are invisible rivals.
Okay, let's unpack that term. What does he mean exactly by an invisible rival?
It's a very specific evolutionary definition. Humans are what biologists call super cooperators. We're a species that conquered the Earth not because we're the strongest or the fastest.
But because we can work together.
Better than anything else. But, and this is the absolute key insight, we evolved to use that cooperation, to use our language and our social norms as camouflage for competition.
So we don't compete against the system.
We compete through the system.
So me holding the door open for someone isn't just me being polite. It could be a move on some giant social chessboard.
Potentially, yes. The whole mission of this deep dive is to sort of strip away the smoke of civilization. We need to look at the biological and evolutionary roots of deception.
We have to understand why cheating isn't an anomaly.
It's a fundamental part of human nature.
I have to say, it sounds a little bit cynical, doesn't it? Like we're stripping away all the romance and, the goodness of being human.
It can definitely feel that way. But if we want to understand things like that Dan Price story, or why corruption happens in our most beloved charities, or even just why office politics are so incredibly draining, we have to look at the biology.
You have to understand the mechanism underneath it all.
You have to. So let's start with the history of this idea, because it really feels like science just can't make up its mind about who we are. We seem to bounce back and forth between humans are basically good and humans are basically bad.
It's a total pendulum swing.
It really is. And in the heavyweight championship of philosophy on this, you've got two main corners. In the red corner, you have Thomas Hobbes, writing back in the 1600s.
Hobbes is the glass is completely, totally empty guy.
That's putting it mildly.
Mm.
Hobbes argued that in a state of nature, life is nasty, brutish, and short.
Just constant war.
Right. He believed humans are naturally selfish, violent, chaotic. The only thing keeping us from tearing each other apart is the state authority, laws, what he called the Leviathan.
Okay, so that's the grim view. Who's in the blue corner?
In the blue corner, you have Jean-Jacques Rousseau. He's the one who gave us the idea of the noble savage.
Ah, the opposite view.
Completely. His view is that humans are naturally peaceful, egalitarian, and kind. It is society, civilization, property, cities that corrupts us.
I feel like the Rousseau view is very, very popular right now. We love this idea of the peaceful hunter-gatherer living in perfect harmony with nature.
We do. It appeals to our desire for a simpler, maybe a purer past. And what Goodman points out in the book, which is so sharp, is that even in science, our supposedly objective views of human nature tend to swing back and forth based on the political trends of the time.
Okay, so give us an example of that. How does politics influence the science?
Well, think about the Cold War era. You had this massive ideological battle playing out on the world stage, right? Capitalism versus communism.
Right.
During that time, the dominant scientific model in the West was Homo economicus.
The rational, selfish actor.
Exactly. The idea that every human is basically a solitary island trying to maximize their own profit would fit the capitalist worldview perfectly. Greed is natural, competition is good, it drives progress.
Okay, that makes sense. So what about now?
Well, now, as we've moved into a more modern, more progressive era, the pendulum has swung. The trendy view in anthropology and biology now is Homo reciprocans.
Humans as super cooperators.
You got it. The idea that we are inherently altruistic, that we are wired to share and help. But Goodman's argument is that both of these are just caricatures. They're too simple.
And he tells this amazing story to illustrate how political bias can shape what a scientist sees. The story of Pyotr Kropotkin.
I love this story. Kropotkin was a Russian prince, right? But also a zoologist.
And an anarchist. What a combination.
A fascinating character. So in the 1860s, he goes on this trek through Siberia with a friend, Ivan Polyakov. And you have to remember the context. This was right after Darwin published The Origin of Species.
So everyone is thinking survival of the fittest. Nature is red in tooth and claw.
That's exactly what they expected to find. They went out looking for competition. They expected to see animals murdering each other over every last scarce resource.
And Siberia seems like the perfect place to see that because it is so incredibly harsh.
It's a frozen wasteland.
Mm.
But Kropotkin didn't see animals fighting each other. He saw them huddled together for warmth. He saw herds of deer banding together. He didn't see them fighting each other. He saw them fighting the environment.
Because the cold creates a common enemy, the real rival is the climate.
Precisely. So Kropotkin comes back and writes this hugely influential book, Mutual Aid, arguing that cooperation, not competition, is the main driving force of evolution.
Okay, but here's the catch, and this is Goodman's point.
Here's the catch. Did Kropotkin see cooperation because it was the universal truth of nature? Or did he see it because he was an anarcho-communist who wanted to believe that people don't need a government to be good?
He saw what he needed to see to support his own political ideology.
And crucially, he saw what the environment demanded. If you are a solitary wolf in Siberia, you die. Cooperation wasn't some high-minded moral principle. It was a survival strategy.
He mistook a survival strategy for innate goodness.
Exactly. And that mistake has echoed through the decades. Goodman also takes a sledgehammer to this romantic idea of the egalitarian past.
Right, there was this famous symposium in the 1960s, Man the Hunter.
That was a pivotal moment in anthropology. It basically solidified this academic consensus that our hunter-gatherer ancestors were all peaceful, they shared everything, they treated everyone equally.
It reinforced that noble savage idea from Rousseau.
It put a scientific stamp of approval on it. But the source material just throws a bucket of ice water on that whole notion.
Okay, so let's get into the counter-evidence.
Goodman brings up the Ache people of Paraguay. They're often cited as a classic cooperative of society because they share food so widely. You know, if a hunter brings back a big piece of meat, he shares it with the whole group.
Which sounds lovely, like a little socialist paradise.
It does. Until you look at the other data. Historically, the Ache had incredibly high rates of infanticide.
How high are we talking?
We're talking 14% of boys and 23% of girls were killed at birth or shortly after.
23%. That is a staggering number.
It is. And it gets darker. Then you have the Cheyenne. We often romanticize Native American cultures as being perfectly spiritual and egalitarian. But in Cheyenne society, if a man decided his wife was a bad wife, Maybe she was disobedient or didn't perform her duties to his satisfaction,
He could put her on the prairie.
which was a chilling euphemism.
Hmm.
It meant she would be gang raped by his soldier society.
And this was a socially sanctioned punishment.
It was a punishment for a woman who didn't cooperate with the patriarchy.
Wow. That is horrifying.
And it's not an isolated case. Then
Yeah.
you have the Calusa in what is now Florida. They were a sedentary foraging society, meaning they didn't move around much, and they weren't egalitarian at all.
What were they like?
They had kings, they had commoners, they had slaves, and they practiced human sacrifice.
So this whole idea that primitive equals peaceful and equal is it's a complete myth.
It's a convenient myth. Goodman's point is that there is no single, universal human morality that we can point to in the past. We have incredibly diverse histories,
Some societies were egalitarian, sure.
but many others were brutal gerontocracies, basically ruled by old men who hoarded all the resources and all the young wives. We are capable of both extremes.
So we're not hardwired for morality.
We're hardwired for survival. And to really understand that, we have to go deeper than anthropology. We have to go down to the cellular level, to biology.
Okay, so this brings us to section 2, the biology of the cheater. And Goodman starts with something that affects almost everyone at some point. Cancer.
If you want to see the original invisible rival, he says, look at a cancer cell. The source even mentions a 240-million-year-old turtle tumor found by paleontologists.
Which proves that cancer isn't just a modern disease caused by pollution or our diets.
Exactly. It is an ancient, fundamental biological reality. And just think for a second about what a cancer cell actually is. Your body is a cooperative society of billions of cells.
All agreeing to the same rules.
Right. They all agree to specific rules. When to divide, when to stop dividing, when to sacrifice themselves and die for the good of the whole organism. A cancer cell is a cheater cell.
It goes rogue.
It decides to stop cooperating. It breaks the social contract of the body. Its only goal becomes maximizing its own reproduction at the expense of the host.
It takes all the resources, it multiplies without limit.
And eventually, it kills the very body that it depends on for life. It is the definition of short-sighted selfishness.
And this links back to that blind watchmaker concept in evolution, right?
Absolutely. Evolution doesn't have a long-term plan. It's not a conscious designer. It doesn't look at a cancer cell and say, hey, knock that off, you're going to kill the host in 5 years.
It only cares about what works right now.
Exactly. Evolution favors immediate survival and reproduction. If a cheater can exploit a cooperative system right now, whether that's a cancer cell in a body or a thief in a trusting village, and reproduce, that trait survives and gets passed on.
And we see this kind of deception all over the animal kingdom. It's not just cells.
Oh, it is everywhere. I mean, take the cuckoo bird. It's a classic brood parasite. It doesn't build its own nest.
It lays its eggs in another bird's nest.
And the deception is incredible. The cuckoo egg often mimics the color and pattern of the host's eggs. Then the cuckoo chick hatches, and in many species, it will physically push the host's own eggs or chicks out of the nest to smash on the ground.
That's just brutal, eliminating the competition from day one.
And then it mimics the unique song of the host's chicks to trick the foster parents into feeding it. It is biological fraud. It is identity theft at a genetic level.
Or what about the sneaky male sunfish? I love this one because it feels like something out of a heist movie.
It is brilliant, isn't it? So you have the big, aggressive, territorial male sunfish. He guards the nest. He does all the work, fights off predators, attracts the females.
That's a good, responsible citizen.
And then you have the small, sneaky male. He doesn't fight. He doesn't build a nest. He mimics a female fish,
He basically cross-dresses.
essentially. He changes his color, his behavior. He slips into the territory. The big male thinks, oh, another female, great, and lets him in.
And then what?
The sneaky male fertilizes some of the eggs and swims off, completely scot-free, leaving the big male to raise a bunch of kids that aren't even his.
So the big tough guy does all the work, and the little trickster gets the genetic payoff.
It is an incredibly effective strategy. And then you have primates, which are even more sophisticated. There's this famous experiment with two chimps, Bell and Rock.
Bell was the subordinate one, the lower-ranking one, right?
Yes, and Rock was the alpha, the big bully. So the researchers would hide food, and only Bell knew where it was. But if Bell went straight to the food, Rock would just shove her aside and eat it all himself.
Just pure reactive aggression. See food, take food.
So what did Bell do? She learned to deceive. She started leading Rock away from the food. She would walk confidently in the completely wrong direction.
And Rock would follow her.
He'd follow her, get confused, and then she'd double back and grab the food while he was looking somewhere else. She even learned to sit on her hands to stop herself from instinctively pointing at the bananas.
That's tactical deception. That's planning.
Right, and this is the crucial difference Goodman highlights. Animals deceive physically or behaviorally. They mimic something,
Hmm.
but humans, we leveled up.
We deceive socially and linguistically.
Exactly. We don't just mimic a female fish. We use words. We use reputation. We use the social contract itself as a weapon.
Which brings us to section 3, the Ring of Gyges. This is a reference to Plato, right?
It is, from Plato's Republic. There's this story about a shepherd named Gyges who finds a magic ring that can make him invisible.
And the philosophical question Plato asks through his characters is, if a truly just man puts on this ring and can do whatever he wants without being seen, will he still be just?
And the argument made by the character Glaucon is a resounding no. He argues that any man, just or unjust, would eventually steal, kill, or sleep with the queen if he knew for a fact he wouldn't get caught.
He argues that we only behave because we're afraid of the consequences. We're afraid of being seen.
And Goodman's big idea here is that language is our ring of Gyges.
We don't need a magic ring to be invisible.
No. We use words to hide our true intentions. We use what he calls social crypsis, which is just a fancy term for social camouflage. We are opportunistic cooperators.
Meaning we follow the rules when the lights are on.
When our reputation is at stake, when we're being watched.
Yeah.
But when we think we're invisible or when we think we can talk our way out of it, we cheat.
And this ties directly into the social brain hypothesis and Dunbar's number.
Right. Robin Dunbar's famous theory that the average human can maintain about 150 stable social relationships. That's Dunbar's number.
And the hypothesis is that our brains got so big not to make better tools or find fruit,
but to manage this incredibly complex web of gossip, alliances, and reputation.
It's funny because gossip is usually seen as such a bad, petty thing, but here it's actually a vital social tool. It's like a policing mechanism.
It's the original police force. Gossip is how we enforce social norms and destroy the reputation of a free rider. If you cheat me, I don't punch you. I tell everyone in our tribe that you're untrustworthy.
And your social life dies.
Your reputation dies. And in a hunter-gatherer society, if you have no reputation, you starve. No one will share with you. So we evolved this deep primal fear of gossip.
But, and here's the twist, the arms race. We also evolved to become masters of manipulating it.
This is what Goodman calls Machiavellian intelligence. It's a shift in our evolutionary history away from reactive aggression, just lashing out and hitting someone, like Brock the chimp.
To proactive aggression.
Planning, plotting, biding your time. We essentially domesticated ourselves to look nice, to appear polite and cooperative. But underneath, we became much, much better at plotting behind the scenes. We became the smiling assassin.
And in this framework, Goodman argues that psychopathy isn't necessarily a disease in the purely medical sense.
He suggests it might be an extreme but viable evolutionary strategy. It's mimicry. A psychopath learns to perfectly mimic normal human emotions: empathy, concern, charm, keen trust.
And then once they're inside the nest, like the cuckoo bird,
They exploit the resources and the trust of the group.
that's a truly terrifying thought. It makes you wonder how many people in everyday life are just performing goodness.
It's a fundamental problem of trust in a social species. And it leads us directly to what we're all actually competing for. It's not just bananas anymore. This is section 4, the 3 forms of capital.
Goodman argues we are all capitalists, not in a political sense, but in a biological one.
Absolutely. Biology is an economy. You need to acquire and manage resources to survive and reproduce. Goodman breaks this down into 3 core currencies that we are constantly accumulating and trading.
Okay, so the first one is the most obvious. Resource capital. That's just money, land, food, stuff.
Tangible wealth. And there's a really important concept here called the polygyny threshold. It sounds complicated, but the idea is simple. When resource inequality gets high enough, when one male has a massive amount of resources compared to others, it completely changes the mating market.
This is where the modern billionaires come in.
Look at figures like Musk or Bezos. They have an almost unimaginable amount of resource capital, and we see them having many children, often with multiple partners over their lifetime. They've crossed that threshold.
And Goodman points out something really interesting about philanthropy in this context. We see things like the Giving Pledge, where billionaires promise to give away the majority of their fortune.
Which looks like the ultimate act of altruism. It looks like they're being profoundly good.
But is it biological altruism?
That's the key question. Biological altruism requires a genuine cost to your own survival or reproduction. If I give you my only sandwich and I go hungry, that's a biological cost.
But if a billionaire gives away $1 billion but still has 10 billion left, does that hurt his ability to survive or reproduce in any meaningful way?
Not in the slightest. He still has the private jet, the mansions, the best health care. So it's not a biological cost. Goodman argues it's a purchase.
He's buying the second form of capital, social capital.
This is reputation. It's who you know, it's your status, your relational wealth. And this is where that Curb Your Enthusiasm example from the book is just perfect.
Oh, the Larry David versus Ted Danson donation. I love that episode.
It illustrates the point perfectly. So Larry David donates a wing to a hospital, and he puts his name on it, the Larry David wing. He's openly buying status.
He's trading resource capital for social capital very transparently.
Right. But then Ted Danson also donates a wing, but he puts anonymous on the plaque.
Which seems so much more noble.
But then, of course, everyone finds out it was Ted Danson. He makes sure of it. So Ted Danson gets the credit for the donation, and he gets bonus credit for being humble about it. He double-dipped.
And Larry is absolutely furious because Ted is getting more social capital for the same price. He's a better social capitalist.
Precisely. Ted Danson maximized his return on investment. He bought status and disguised it as altruism. That is the classic invisible rival move.
And we see this everywhere, with Nepo babies, for instance. You don't just inherit money, you inherit the network, the social capital.
And you inherit the group's shibboleths.
Okay, what is a shibboleth?
The term comes from a really brutal story in the biblical book of Judges. One tribe had just defeated another, and they were guarding a river crossing to catch the fleeing enemies.
How did they tell them apart?
They made everyone trying to cross say the word shibboleth. The enemy tribe's dialect couldn't pronounce the shiphead. They said Sibboleth instead.
And if you said Sibboleth?
You were killed on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
The story says 42,000 men died that day for mispronouncing one word.
So it's a cultural password.
It's the ultimate cultural password. Today, it's not a river crossing. It's using the right accent. It's knowing which fork to use at a fancy dinner. It's knowing the right political opinions to hold to get into an elite university or a particular social circle.
If you signal the wrong shibboleth, you're out. You're identified as not being part of the in-group.
You lose social capital. You're canceled or excluded. It's a way of guarding the gates of elite status.
Okay, so we have resource capital and social capital. What's the third currency?
The third is embodied capital. This is the wealth that is physically stored inside you. Your health, your skills, your beauty, your knowledge, and intelligence.
And the book uses the example of the turtle hunters, the Miriam people of the Torres Strait.
Right. Hunting large sea turtles from a small canoe is incredibly dangerous, difficult, and frankly, an inefficient way to get food. You could get more calories for less risk just fishing for sardines in the lagoon.
So why do the young men do it?
To show off. It's a costly signal. Being a good turtle hunter is a public demonstration of your embodied capital. It shows you have strength, agility, courage, and deep knowledge of the sea.
And what's the payoff?
The best hunters get more wise and have more children. Their high embodied capital translates directly into reproductive success. It's a display of genetic quality.
And we call this peacocking in the modern world, right? Showing off our feathers.
Exactly. The Garhwal dance in Niger is a great example where men dress in elaborate makeup and dance for hours in the heat to show off their stamina and beauty to potential wives. But Goodman argues that getting a PhD is also a form of peacocking.
As someone who doesn't have a PhD, I'm very ready to hear this explanation.
Well, think about it from a biological, economic perspective. It takes years of your life. It costs a fortune in tuition and lost income. It's mentally and physically exhausting.
It's what's known as the handicap principle.
Precisely. It signals to the world, my brain is so powerful and I have so much energy to spare that I can afford to waste 5 years studying this incredibly obscure topic and still survive and thrive.
It proves you have a surplus of embodied capital.
You have intelligence to burn.
So we are constantly in this marketplace trading these three capitals. We trade money for status, we trade our skills for money, and we're doing it all while trying to look like we're just being nice, cooperative people.
Which brings us to the really dark side of all this, Section 5, exploitation in the modern world. Because whenever there's a market, there are cheaters.
This section really hit me. It starts with this concept of the power of darkness, which is really about rationalization.
This is the story we tell ourselves so we can sleep at night. Goodman says we use fairness as a yardstick to measure other people, but we use a very flexible measuring tape for ourselves. We rationalize.
And this is linked to a psychological phenomenon called moral licensing.
Yes. This is the idea that if I do something good, or even just say something good, I feel like I've earned the right to do something bad later.
Like balancing a scale.
Studies show this so clearly. If you give people a chance to express a strong moral view, like writing an essay about how sexism is bad, they're actually more likely to act in a biased, sexist way in a subsequent task.
Why? Because they feel like they've earned it.
They feel they have a full moral bank account, so it's okay to make a little withdrawal.
Mm.
It explains so much of the hypocrisy we see in public figures. The louder they preach virtue, the more they often feel licensed to sin in private.
But it's not just our individual psychology. Markets themselves seem to distort our morality. There was this deeply disturbing study called the surplus mouse experiment.
Oh God, this one. It's brutal, but so revealing.
So what was the setup?
Researchers took what they called a surplus mouse, a lab mouse that was healthy but scheduled to be euthanized anyway, and they gave participants a choice. They could save the mouse's life, or they could allow the mouse to be killed and receive 10 euros.
Okay, so a direct moral choice. Money versus a life.
And when it was just an individual one-on-one choice, about 46% of people took the money and let the mouse die.
So almost half. That's already pretty dark.
It is, but then they introduced a market. They created buyers and sellers who had to trade for the life of the mouse. I'll sell you the right to kill this mouse for a price.
They turned a moral decision into a financial transaction.
And in that market scenario, over 70% of the participants agreed to kill the mouse for money.
Wow. Why? Why does adding a market make us more cruel?
Because it diffuses responsibility. The thinking becomes, I didn't kill the mouse, the market price dictated the outcome. Or, if I didn't buy it and kill it, someone else would have anyway. Markets erode our individual moral compass by making us focus on the transaction, not the consequence.
And this leads directly to institutional corruption, or what Goodman calls social crypsis.
Social crypsis is camouflage. Just like a stick, insect hides by looking like a stick. A predatory person hides by looking like a pillar of the community. They embed themselves inside good institutions.
The source really goes in on the new atheism movement here.
It does, because it's a perfect case study.
Mhm.
The new atheist movement positioned itself as the pinnacle of rationality, logic, and egalitarianism. We are better than those irrational, dogmatic religious folks.
And that was the brand.
That was the brand. And yet, the movement became absolutely riddled with misogyny scandals. Prominent figures like Michael Shermer and Lawrence Krauss were accused of sexual harassment and assault by numerous women. Rationality became a mask, a form of moral licensing for their bad behavior.
And then there's the example of The Wing. I remember when that place was the coolest, most exclusive spot in New York.
The feminist co-working space, designed for female empowerment. It was supposed to be a utopia, a safe haven from the patriarchy.
The ultimate good institution.
And yet, investigative reports came out showing they treated their lower-level staff, who were often women of color, terribly. Low pay, brutal hours, a culture of disrespect. The empowerment brand was a shibboleth, a shiny mask for old-fashioned capitalist exploitation.
And the St. Jude example is so tough because St. Jude does amazing life-saving work.
And that's the nuance we have to hold in our minds. St. Jude raises billions of dollars. They treat children with cancer for free. That is undeniably good.
What?
But investigative reporting showed that while the hospital itself sits on billions in cash reserves, many families of the patients were going into debt, paying for their own travel, food, and lodging to get to the hospital, all while the CEO was making or reported $1.5 million a year.
So it's not that the institution is evil, that's too simple.
No, it's that a sterling good reputation is the absolute perfect hiding spot for an invisible rival. If you want to hoard capital and pay yourself a massive salary, the best place to do it is inside a beloved charity. Who is going to question the salary of a man who is saving dying children?
It's an incredibly powerful form of social camouflage. It effectively silences criticism.
It uses our own morality against us.
So society isn't completely defenseless against this, though. Section 6 is about the cultural immune system.
Right. If selfish individuals are like cancer cells, then society, over millennia, has evolved a kind of immune system to detect and cite them. We develop norms, laws, religions, all designed to suppress unchecked selfishness.
The book mentions the Maori concept of how.
Yes, the spirit of the gift. The Maori traditionally believed that if you receive a gift, it carries a spiritual essence, aha. If you don't reciprocate with a gift of your own in return, that spirit will become angry and might actually kill you.
That is a pretty strong motivator to pay back your debts.
It's a supernatural tax on selfishness. It's a belief system that forces you to keep the cycle of cooperation going. And you see similar mechanisms everywhere. Shaming, punishment, gossip. These are all the white blood cells of society attacking the social cancer.
But as you said before, it's an arms race.
It's always an arms race. Every time society builds a wall, a new law, a new social norm, the invisible rivals are busy building a ladder. They find a loophole, a new rationalization, a new way to game the system.
And sometimes the immune system itself goes haywire. Our desire for a strong, cooperative group gets twisted into tribalism.
The third wave experiment is the most terrifying and perfect example of this. This was a high school teacher in California in the 1960s, Ron Jones. He wanted to teach his class how fascism could take hold.
But he didn't just lecture them about it.
No. He started a movement in the classroom. He created a group identity called the Third Wave. He gave them a motto: strength through discipline, strength through community, strength through action. He gave them a special salute.
And the kids bought into it.
They loved it. In 5 days, he had turned an ordinary high school class into a burgeoning fascist movement. The students felt a powerful sense of belonging and purpose.
And then they started policing each other.
They started informing on anyone who wasn't loyal enough to the movement. And the most interesting and disturbing finding: the students who were previously in the middle, the ones who usually check out, who were just average C students, they became the most fanatical enforcers.
Why them specifically?
Because for the first time in their lives, they had status. They had social capital. The movement gave them power. It showed just how quickly our innate desire for community, which feels so good, can turn into exclusion and authoritarianism.
But there is a glimmer of hope. The book gives us a counterexample. Albert Goering.
The brother of Hermann Goering. Now, Hermann was one of the most powerful and evil men in the Third Reich. Hitler's right-hand man, founder of the Gestapo. A complete monster.
And Albert was his brother.
His younger brother.
Yeah.
And he looked just like him. Same eyes, same build. But Albert was completely different.
What did he do?
Albert was an invisible rival for good. He despised the Nazis. But he didn't run away or hide. He used his family name, his immense resource and social capital, as a weapon against the regime.
How exactly?
He would walk into Gestapo prisons, or even concentration camps, demand to see the commander, and use his name like a battering ram. I am a Goering. He would demand the release of Jewish prisoners, claiming they were his workers or his personal friends. He forged his brother's signature on exit visas. He bullied and threatened SS officers.
So he used the tools of corruption and nepotism, things we normally think of as bad, to save lives.
Exactly. He proves that we aren't slaves to our genes or our culture or our tools. We can choose how to deploy our capital. We can choose to be rivals for good.
So let's try to bring this all home, the outro. We've looked at the biology, the history, the psychology. What is the final synthesis here?
The synthesis is that the invisible rival isn't some monster under the bed. It's not a rare psychopath. It is the person who smiles, who shakes your hand, who uses all the right corporate and social buzzwords: cooperation, synergy, empowerment, community, but is, underneath it all, quietly and methodically maximizing their own capital at the expense of the group.
And the truly uncomfortable truth
Is that it's not just them. It's not just the CEOs and the con artists. It's us. We all do it. We all rationalize. We all seek capital. We all have that ring of gauges in our pocket. Every time you're anonymous on the internet, you're putting on the ring. Every time you justify a small fudge on your expense report, you are being a rival.
Kubin leaves us with a really, really provocative final thought about the nature of true altruism.
He does. He basically argues that true altruism is incredibly rare because it is, by definition, biologically expensive. If you do something good and then you tell people about it, if you post it online, if you make sure you get the credit.
You haven't really sacrificed anything.
No, you've just made a trade. You've traded your resource capital, your time or your money, for social capital, praise, status, and reputation. It's a transaction.
So the final challenge to you, the listener, is this. Can you do a good deed that is truly, completely invisible?
Can you help someone in a way where no one, not your...
Because if you feel that powerful itch to tell someone, to get the credit, to get that little hit of social capital,
then you might just be a rival in disguise.
that is a heavy thought to leave on. It really forces you to check your own motives in a fundamental way.
It's the ultimate test of who we really are when nobody is watching.
This has been a deep dive into invisible rivals. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.